Spider-Man No Way Home was the #1 hit movie of 2021, and after a string of misfires, it made a lot of people excited about the MCU again, especially about the Spider-Man side of things. Clearly, the audience feels strongly for not just the current MCU Spider-Man, but the Spider-Men of the previous movies, which have now retroactively been made part of the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. But there is another, not too dissimilar, samey character which also took the audience by storm, and that would be Deadpool. His movie was the breakout hit of 2016, but despite Marvel regaining the full and unrestricted movie rights to Deadpool when Disney acquired Fox, he has so far been missing in action. Since Marvel can use Deadpool, but so far have chosen not to, many have rightfully wondered, where is Deadpool? When will he appear in the MCU? Will he be watered down for the MCU? And if so, by how much? We may just have learned the answers to those questions, and we're about to share them with you. Please note that what we're about to go through are third-party scoops that at the time of making this video cannot be independently verified. Pending such confirmation, you should therefore treat this as rumor and take it with a grain of salt, as should you all other rumors. That being said, the third party in this case is entertainment journalist and scooper Mikey Sutton's Geekosity magazine. We have covered Sutton's scoops many times before, most recently in conjunction with the reports that the Flash movie is being used as a means to wipe out the Snyderverse and replace Batman and Superman with Batgirl and Supergirl. See the video link in the description for more details on that. Considering his track record where scoops are concerned, a slightly smaller grain of salt is required this time than most other times, since scoops coming from Mikey Sutton historically have a greater chance of panning out. And since these ones deal not with corporate politics behind the scenes, but the actual on-screen narrative, we also have to provide a potential spoiler alert. If you want to retain all surprises in future Marvel movies for when you see them on the big screen, then leave now. There's no shame in it. Go watch another video instead. But if you don't mind potential spoilers though, keep watching till the end. Let's begin with making a distinction between the original character that we've seen before and a variant. The two guest Spider-Men in Spider-Man No Way Home were the original characters we've seen before in their own respective movies. That was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man from the Sam Raimi trilogy, and the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man from Alex Kurtzman's failed and aborted Sony Spider-Man Universe version 1.0. Both whisked out of their own respective universes to join up with Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU. By contrast, the Matt Murdock we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home and the Wilson Fisk Kingpin we saw in Hawkeye are variants. That terminology comes from the Loki miniseries, the finale of which is where the Marvel Multiverse was retroactively created. What that means is that those were a different pair of Matt Murdocks and Wilson Fisks from the ones we saw in the Netflix series. Contrary to what you have been led to believe, the Netflix series were never part of the MCU. Legally, they were always separate, and in terms of MCU continuity, you are now meant to think of them as taking place within a separate universe within the larger Marvel multiverse. The Netflix-verse, if you will. The Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk in the Netflix Daredevil series are therefore native to the Netflix-verse, while the Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk seen in No Way Home and Hawkeye respectively are their variants, native to the MCU. Their lives, abilities and experiences will be somewhat different than those of their Netflix counterparts. The reason I go on so about the difference between a variant native to the MCU and an original character from elsewhere transported into the MCU is that distinction is going to be ever more important. As more characters that Marvel regained control over in the Fox acquisition, as well as more characters Sony will grant access to under Marvel and Sony's new deal, will make their entry into the MCU. This then brings us to Deadpool. According to Mikey Sutton, Deadpool will not be a variant like Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk. Instead, he'll be the very same Deadpool we know and love from the previous movies, whisked into the MCU the same way Spider-Man Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were. Or perhaps more accurately, the same way Tom Hardy's Venom was, and I mean literally the same way. Doctor Strange's botched spell in Spider-Man No Way Home apparently did more than it first appeared to do. Because according to Sutton sources, that spell is what brought Deadpool into the MCU. There are obviously some more details as to how and why, but those are unreported as of yet. So creatively, Deadpool could be in the MCU already, but where will we get to see him? The possible answer to that is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and then possibly in a post-credit scene. If that is accurate, we could get our first glimpse of Deadpool in the MCU sooner rather than later. Of course, that sentence, Deadpool in the MCU, will be scary to some, because within the confines of the MCU, how toned down will Deadpool have to be? The answer to that depends on exactly where Deadpool is. If he does end up making a cameo in Doctor Strange, he is probably not going to do anything too raunchy there, nor is he if and when he pops up in other MCU projects down the line, because apparently he will be making appearances all over the place. The rule appears to be that when he makes guest appearances elsewhere, he'll be PG-13. But then there is the matter of Deadpool's own movies, which reportedly are in development. We have always been told they would be rated R, and according to Sutton sources, that is still the case. Somehow, somewhere, there will be R-rated projects taking place within the MCU, and Deadpool apparently is among them. Do you think that is going to happen? And in either event, how excited are you for Deadpool in the MCU? Let me know in the comments.